That was because that was what they were going to use to do the interest.
Well, I guess we might have to. It might be better if you just cut and paste.
Hello, how are you?
Just met your mom.
Oh.
Couldn't sign my petition.
She couldn't, no.
Did you
I
get
haven't
my-
signed your petition, though.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah, I signed it yesterday, but and actually, I've got some petitions at my house. So, and my wife is saying my daughter is still here from college. She's and my other daughter's in Highland Park. She says so she's. How about that?
This is for selectors.
Yeah, I think it might
I
be
don't
better
know
than
who it
scanning.
is.
Oh, really?
No, I don't think it's. So did you close the place down?
I'm trying to think when you left.
Yeah.
I was all like blurry eyed.
Where you're out back.
And this is Debbie, my wife's mom, at the middle of the bar.
Oh, okay. She went in 08 too, didn't she?
Yeah.
Need a signature?
Huh?
Need a signature?
Yeah. Where do you live?
14th Ward, or
great.
14th District.
That'd be great, thank you.
So how many signatures do you need to gather?
300 is it. But people actually look at ours, so
Yeah.
I think they're like 600, 700. So, get it.
Has anyone worked the locker room?
I was, my wife and I were there this morning. In fact, it's like, it might be a better place today than this. I mean,
I was just going to say, yeah. So have you been to the Haggis party before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 for years.
We haven't been there for the last couple of years, but we've gone several times.
And this one is a delegate for my wife. You go by Al or Albert? Or what do you do?
I usually prefer Albert,
Okay.
but I have people who call me Al.
Scooped you over a little bit now.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
No problem. It's my reach.
Timer? Do you have a timer?
Huh?
You have somebody keeping time? Lisa here yet?
I haven't seen Lisa. There's Lisa and
All right, so
Eliza, right?
these are the choices. All right. We either let him on, okay, or we don't, and we have to pay for it. We have to pay for the hall. We're talking probably about $10.
So. Okay. Well, I guess
Fetterman
he's.
people,
Talking to Terry?
we got 4 minutes. I can do that. You guys are moderators.
I mean, we can do whatever. but
There's Lisa. That's good.
Where will Lisa sit? Will she be?
She's right over here.
it's front row, I think.
Oh, okay.
The question is whether or not, and the only way we're getting 10 from the board was the 10%.
I'm not going that way.
So,
My inclination is to go up.
Got it, Bruce.
I'm fine. You make the call. We're good. We're just here to give the,
You're just here to ask the question.
ask questions.
I got 3 minutes.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Hi.
You're going to be running the moderation today?
We are.
All right. I'm just going to preset my camera so it's locked on you guys. So try not to slide too much up and down the table.
Okay.
But everything should
Where are
be
you
good.
from?
Huh? I'm
CMU?
from Carnegie Mellon.
Okay, great. All right. Do you mind scooching down a little bit?
Sure. Absolutely.
Are these your mic?
Yep. There's a push button. When that light's off, it's muted.
You have to hold it down if you're talking.
But it's a pretty directional mic, right?
Yes.
So it's not going to pick this up, but I'm going to.
Right.
And this one?
That one's going directly to the webcast.
Okay.
So
And that's just on all
yeah,
the
just
time.
don't mess with that one, please.
Don't touch.
You should be all right though. But yeah, in order for everybody to hear you nice and clearly, definitely point those back at you and keep them about 6 to 8 inches away.
Okay.
That should be fine.
Okay.
Excellent.
Do you ever know what this guy's name is? What's the
Let's get Lindsay and see if we can.
When the dean thinks I should.
They're not going
What was that?
And then the last page used to be this. But that's not going to work. So,
All right, I'll write the audio.
I mean, we can just do this. Right.
So, Ford and still got the 2 American statements.
Yeah, so it looks to me on these timing, we were actually doing pretty good. We actually hit the most of it.
Yeah.
But now it looks like your question might So if he's here, if not, we should be good.
So I just go if he's here, just let all this go. If he's here, we'll just
Good.
Oh. You get reserved seats? Oh. Are they in the front row? Come.
All right, don't touch that sunlight.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started, so if you want to grab a seat, I'm sorry we're running a little bit behind, but we'll try to get you to our candidates as quick as possible. My name is Sam Hens-Greco, and I am the chair of the 14th Ward Democratic Committee, and I want to slow things. And I want to welcome you this afternoon to Carnegie Mellon University to be part of our U.S. Senate Candidate Forum. I want to first start by thanking the candidates and their staff for all their help and cooperation in making this possible. They have 30 less days this year to campaign, which makes their campaign a little more hectic than normal. But I greatly appreciate them being here, because without that, without you, of course, this doesn't become a reality. The purpose of our forum is quite simple. We want to have a substantive, serious, and thought-provoking space and time for you, the concerned voters, Democratic voters from the 14th Ward and East End of Pittsburgh. We want to provide you with the opportunity to meet the candidates, to talk with them, and to hear them. And we want the candidates to have the opportunity to talk to you and tell you why you should be voting for them to be the Democratic nominee. We've been doing this now for several years, and I would like to introduce some of the elected officials who have gathered with us here today. some of them who've been part of our forum in the last couple years. I want to first introduce our Congressman. Congressman Mike Doyle's here. From our state delegation, Senator Jay Costa, I believe, is here. Jay, thank you, Jay. And our state representative, Dan Frankel. Our party chair, the Allegheny County Party Chair, Nancy Mills, is here. Our county executive, Rich Fitzgerald, our Allegheny County Chief Executive. We have with us, I saw City Councilman Corey O'Connor was also here earlier. He's not on my list. As is our controller, Michael Lamb, is here on this side. We have school board members Terry Kennedy and newly elected school board member Linda Wren from 14th Ward. And Darrell Repp is here from Swissville's Borough Council. Thank all the elected officials for their support and also for being here. And if I've missed you, I'm going to keep on scanning the room while I'm talking, hoping that I see you before I sit down to also thank you and to greet you. I want to recognize a couple other people here. I'd like to recognize Liz Healy, who's here. Liz, please stand up. Come on, Liz, stand up. Liz is responsible for putting the book together. She did the major part of the work. She had a lot of great help from Beverly Taylor and Chris Zorowski, who did the editing. And Chris went back and did the history of all the forum and the people who have attended in previous times. I want to thank Carnegie Mellon Johns Heinz School. They've been tremendously helpful in partnering with us, specifically John Nelson and Sharish Mehta, and also Lindsay Powell is a student at the school, is going to be announcing the candidates a little later. Also want to thank all of the workers here who put this whole room together, and there are refreshments and some food through these doors for you after the forum. You're welcome to grab something if you haven't already grabbed anything. Finally, I want to thank you for being here. In the last couple years, we've had some great statewide successes, and that's really in large part to a lot of the work you've been doing. This year, we have another hurdle. It's going to be a challenge. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But we can do that. This is a presidential year. There's probably going to be another 1.5 million voters turning out. And if we do our part and our effort, we'll be able to elect the next Democratic nominee who is seated over here to my right. One of these individuals is going to do it. And I am sure the voters in the East End will be very supportive and work very hard for you. Thank you again for being here. At this point, I'd like to introduce Ron Gatos, who's the president. Oh, I'm sorry, Ron, 1 second. I forgot to introduce the sponsoring organizations. Jeannie Clark represents the Shadyside Democrats. Sorry about that. Al Zangarelli is with the 4th Ward Democrats. Al is here. Jessica McCurdy is with the Stonewall City Democrats. One final thing. I do want everybody to stand up from the committee everybody who's helped in putting this together, who went to any of those meetings and all those questions. We've been working since October on this. We sit down, we go over questions, we sit in a room, we haggle it out. It's not an easy process. A lot of times it's frustrating and herding of cats. But our goal is to provide a really strong forum. Like I said, substantive, thought-provoking, and serious. And they've done a great job. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again for you today. Terry Klein and Ron Gatos, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Klein, and I would like to welcome all of our elected officials, guests, and I especially want to thank and welcome our 3 Democratic candidates for the United States Senate. It is truly a great honor for me to be here today and to announce the renaming of the 14th Ward Political Forum as the Barbara Daly Danko Political Forum. Barbara was a longtime Democratic leader in the 14th Ward, a mentor and a dear friend to many of us. Shortly after Barbara's death last year, several of her close friends were discussing how best to remember Barbara's political legacy. When the idea for renaming this forum in Barbara's honor was first suggested, I knew immediately that this would be the perfect tribute and that Barbara would be deeply, deeply honored. This forum epitomizes all of Barbara's political beliefs, crammed into a not-so-cold January afternoon. Here we are, concerned, committed citizens gathered in a warm space to hear good and sincere candidates engage in a serious and civil discussion of ideas, policies, challenges, hopes, and dreams. She would love this. Indeed, the only thing she loved more was her husband, George, and her 4 children. So, in this spirit of community, governance, and leadership that Barbara so dearly revered, I want to welcome you to the first annual Barbara Daly Danko Political Forum. Thank you.
So I'd just like to say a little bit about the club. We call it the club, the 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club. Open to anyone. It's one of the lowest dues around, and if you're a registered Democrat in the 14th Ward, it's a great place to find people like yourselves who are really interested in public policy and how we can best... Sorry. I'll probably repeat myself, so you'll get this again. But this all started in a living room, dining room in Squirrel Hill at the home of Mitch and Debbie McGinty. The last Sunday in January is when we put it together. And we had started it really to elect our board members and select officers. But the last Sunday in January is usually really cold. And we wanted to find some ways to get people out on a morning like that. So we started to host an influential speaker on some important topic of the day. In 2010, that was a really important gubernatorial race. And attendance interest outgrew Mitch and Debbie's home. So under the leadership of Chris Zorowski, during his term as president of the club, we held the first candidates forum at the Whiteman School Community Center. We hosted that with the 14th Ward Democratic Committee. And interested citizens filled the gym, so the ideas caught on, and we've been doing this ever since. That year, and since, the club has joined forces with the 14th Ward Democratic Committee, the Shadyside Dems of the 7th Ward, and since then, the 4th Ward and Stonewall Democrats, and I'm sure we'll add some work with some other progressive groups in the future. So that's where this came from, a little gathering in folks' living rooms, dining rooms, to what you see here today. And we would really are happy about that and welcome you really warmly. Now I'd like to introduce my alma mater's dean, Ramakrishnan, to start getting on through the forum. Thanks a lot.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me well? Excellent. So good afternoon, and my name is Ramaya Krishnan. I'm Dean of the H. John Heinz III School, College of Information Systems and Public Policy here at Carnegie Mellon University. And on behalf of Dr. Subra Suresh, President of Carnegie Mellon, I'd like to warmly welcome our senatorial candidates, the 14th Ward Democratic Committee, and all of you to today's forum and the discussion we are going to witness. The Heinz College is home to Carnegie Mellon's School of Public Policy and Management,
and is home to outstanding faculty and students who work on important societal challenges, from addressing issues of healthcare access to healthcare delivery, crime and drug policy, innovation and tech transfer, and what it means for economic development, and global issues of trade and migration. These are all the things that our students and faculty engage in, and I hope we'll be hearing some of these topics discussed later this afternoon. I want to welcome everybody from the greater Pittsburgh community who are here today. The university is deeply committed and inextricably linked to the greater Pittsburgh community. And in this regard, I'd like to say a few words about an initiative, Metro 21. It's great to see Congressman Doyle here and County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, who with Mayor Bill Peruto have been huge supporters of this initiative, where students and faculty develop really innovative solutions to problems of the city and the county in terms of smart transportation, smart human services, smart infrastructure. And the idea of us here being a hub of innovation in policy, as well as in policy implementation, was certainly brought home when we did a launch at the White House in September, when Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon were the coordinating entity for 25 cities nationally in the idea of bringing these kinds of solutions to cities across the country and perhaps even globally. So this is a great segue, I think, to the forum to come, and I hope several of the issues that we'll be hearing about will address both issues of local impact but also global impact. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce a student from the Heinz College, Lindsay Powell. Lindsay? Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Dean Krishnan. My name is Lindsay Powell, and I'm a first-year student at the Heinz College. As a student representative, I can safely say that we are humbled to have such an important debate on our campus. Carnegie Mellon University prides itself on engagement, and considering the state of our union and the complex issues we have to face in this election season, it is now more important than ever to engage in political discourse. It is my pleasure to introduce our moderators for this debate. Paul Klein is a professor of law and ethics at the Palumbo Donahue School of Business at Duquesne University, where he instructs both undergraduates and MBA students. He's a member of the 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club, and most recently a newly elected county council member for District 11. Our other moderator, yes. Our other moderator this afternoon is Krisha Kubiak. Kubiak is currently the Director of State Regulatory Strategy and Governmental Affairs at Duquesne Light. Additionally, she is the co-chair of the Gender Equality Committee and is a former chair of the Women in the Law Division of the Allegheny County Bar Association. Krisha is the treasurer for the 14th Ward Democratic Committee and is a member of the 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club. Thank you. Lastly, I have the honor of presenting the candidates. John Fetterman began his career as a mentor within the Big Brothers, Big Sisters program, where he was confronted with the stark realities of inequality in the United States. Fetterman joined AmeriCorps, where he served 2 years in the Hill District, setting up the first computer labs in the neighborhood and teaching GED courses to young parents. In 2005, Fetterman was elected mayor of Braddock and is now in his 3rd term. Please welcome Mayor John Fetterman. At a young age, Katie McGinty became involved in politics as a recipient of a congressional fellowship under the former Senator Al Gore. In 1995, she was selected by President Clinton to be the first female leader of the White House Council on Environmental Quality, where she worked on issues like renewable energy. Additionally, McGinty has served as the head of the Pennsylvania Department of Energy Protection under Governor Ed Rendell, and within the private sector, where her leadership led to Pennsylvania becoming the #1 location for wind energy jobs. As Chief of Staff to Governor Tom Wolf, she helped to increase aid to public education and expanded Medicaid. Please welcome Katie McGinty. Former Admiral Joe Sestak served in the Navy for 31 years before running for Congress in his home district in 2006. As a representative, Sestak championed legislation surrounding education and healthcare expansion and supporting small businesses. During the Clinton administration, Sestak served as the Director for Defense Policy on the National Security Council in the White House. Additionally, the Admiral was the Director of the Navy's Anti-Terrorism Unit after September 11th, and the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, where he was responsible for the Navy's 5-year, $350 billion warfare requirements. Please welcome Admiral Joe Sestak.
Thank you.
And with that, I'd like to hand over our stage to our moderators, Paul Klein and Krisha Kubiak. Thank you.
Well, welcome candidates to Carnegie Mellon University on this Robert Burns weekend. And I imagine you'll fill all of our heads and hearts with your poetic aspirations. Just a couple of preliminaries by way of our process today. The time for the answers will be given at the start of the questions. The timekeepers will indicate when there's 30 seconds left, and then when your time is up. So with that, we will give each of you an opportunity to begin with your opening statement, and we'll begin with Mr. Fetterman.
My name is John Fetterman, and I'm the mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania. Hey, thank you for that. It's a pleasure to be here, and because I really have come full circle. I was going through my personal effects, and this is the course grade feedback from Carnegie Mellon's, the Heinz School, from literally 20 years ago. My humble brag is I got an A on that. And I came to Pittsburgh because I was confronted by two personal instances of tragedy and inequality, and that's what brought me to Pittsburgh. The first of which was my best friend was killed in a car crash, and I really wanted something positive to come from that. And the second one was I joined Big Brothers, and I was paired up with a little 8-year-old boy whose father just died of AIDS, and his mother was just about ready to die from AIDS. And I had grown up in the red tea of Pennsylvania. My lame campaign joke is that I hope I'm the first Democrat that my family votes for. I'm from a family of Republicans. But I'm running a progressive campaign on the Democratic ticket. It's an unlikely path, but this path took me to Pittsburgh, it took me to the Hill District, and it took me to Braddock, Pennsylvania, which is probably the poorest community in the entire Commonwealth. And we took on issues for the last 14 years that are at the height of the Democratic debate of our party, whether that's inequality, whether that's gun control, whether that's our war on drugs, whether it's immigration, whether it's drug policies. You know, all these things that we have taken on in Braddock are the things that I'm taking out across this state and this Commonwealth. I fundamentally believe that the zip code that you are born and grew up in should not determine the trajectory of your life. That's why I'm running this race. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Ms. McGinty.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody for having us here today. I'm Katie McGinty, and I'm here to ask for your support. I am in this race for one critical reason, and that is that middle-class families today are barely hanging on. They deserve a champion. I want to step up and be that champion. And you know, if you are out there working hard every day just to take care of yourself and your family, it is your turn to get ahead. For me, this is personal. I was blessed to be born into a big and loving family, 9th of 10 kids, and I was the first to have a shot at 4-year college. There was only one ticket for me. That was hard work. Dad as a policeman, mom as a hostess in a restaurant could not write that check. But hard work did the trick. I won the scholarships. And then hard work got me the job at 29 to be a senior advisor to the President of the United States, Bill Clinton. Give it up for Bill Clinton there, little. And then to be able to build businesses, growing good, clean jobs, and then the honor of serving as your Secretary of Environmental Protection. But here's what we know. For too many families today, that equation isn't there. The hard work isn't delivering the opportunity. It's broken, and I want to help fix it. Here's what else. I want to take on those Republicans who dare to suggest that this is about people asking for a handout. The single mom that I stood with in Pittsburgh pushing on the Fight for 15 was working 2 jobs and raising her 5-year-old son. That's not a handout. She deserves a living wage. Her son deserves time with her. They deserve equal pay for equal work. And it is not true of the steelworkers I stood with, locked out at the ATI plant in Midland. They were working hard, but as the CEO's salary soared, their benefits were being slashed, health and retirement benefits. It was wrong. They spoke up, and I was honored to stand with them.
Thank you. Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
asking
McGinty.
for your support so we can fight for those families. Thank you
Thank you very much.
much.
Mr. Sestak.
Thank you. The Vietnam War was happening when I graduated from high school. I was like other kids my age. I just wanted to join up and serve my country. Over the decades, I got to go into Afghanistan on the ground as the head of the Navy's anti-terrorism unit. Then I was sent out of there, sent back to take a carrier battle group after a short mission in Afghanistan to do the combat operations in Afghanistan as well as in Iraq. They sent me off to Harvard University to get a PhD so I could work for President Clinton as Director of Defense Policy to help secure the peace. And then my 4-year-old daughter got brain cancer. As I came out of Walter Reed that day, they had told that she had 3 months, maybe 9, to live. But because of you, she became one of only 8% of kids who ever survived her type of brain cancer. You gave me health care in the military. I came out, went back to my Republican district, and became a Democrat to pay back my country, to serve again, by running for universal health care for everybody. When I went down to Congress, I was called the most productive congressman my first 2 years down there by Steny Hoyer, passing more pieces of legislation than any other congressman in my class, such as the first movement into autism in 12 years. But I kept my district office open 7 days a week, up to 9 o'clock every night during that recession. We handled 18,000 constituents, 4 times the average congressional office. How could I not? 1,000 people came in my office and had home foreclosures. We saved 650 of them. I came here and taught at Carnegie Mellon after I did not win the Senate race. I want to be back with the national treasure our youth and serve again. I turned down the six-figure and 7-figure lobbying jobs I had been offered because I was an admiral and a congressman. I'm running for the United States Senate because it's a very dangerous world out there, and so few in the United States Senate understand militaries can stop a problem. We never fix a problem. And second, I want to be like my pop, an immigrant with 8 kids. His wife, a school teacher, sat at that table and said, penny for college, penny for food. I want everybody to have that educational opportunity I had. It's why I'm serving again. And be able to have the fair reward of the fair fruits of their labor, to restore the American dream where wages once more rise. That's why I'm running for the United States Senate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sestak. I would remind the candidates to keep your eye on the timekeepers as well. Thank you.
And in the interest of trying to get in as many questions as we can, we've changed the amount of time that you have to answer each question. We will announce that in the beginning of the question, just to give you a heads up.
Quick question. Does this mean 30 seconds or it's over?
That means your 2 minutes is up.
Got it, thanks.
The next question, you have 2 minutes to answer. And we're going to start with Ms. McGinty. The Climate Change Summit in Paris yielded an agreement that commits the United States to meeting carbon reduction targets. What would your proposal be for decreasing greenhouse gases? And what action would you take in the Senate to ensure that the U.S. complies with the mandate?
Thank you. Well, first, it's been my honor and privilege throughout my career to work on this most critical issue of global warming and climate change. Working with then Senator Al Gore, we put together some of the very first hearings in the United States Senate, starting way back in 1989. Now, the science has only gotten more crystal clear, and the effects and the consequences of inaction have only gotten more crystal clear. But we have a senator, of course, in Pat Toomey, who's still part of the know-nothing crowd. Here's what he's missing. When we take action on climate change, we enhance our national security, we protect public health, and we grow our economy. Paris was an amazing step forward in showing how united the world community is on this critical issue. As a United States Senator, here's what I would do. I would fight very hard for those critical dollars to be invested into renewable energy and energy efficiency. They always get left behind. Second, we need to push the envelope on things like green buildings. Pittsburgh has been a leader in LEED certified buildings. That has helped create the buzz around Pittsburgh and keep young people here. It's part of the dynamism of the city. We need to push that envelope further as well. Here's a third piece that often gets left behind. There's the transportation part of the equation. And we need to invest in things like mass transit, like light rail, like walkability. Enhancing mobility in our cities is not only about bringing down that climate change pollution, but again, it makes our cities and towns more attractive and competitive. Look, the bottom line is this. Pennsylvania in particular has a great opportunity to lead on climate change. When I was Secretary of Environmental Protection, we did it. We became #1 in wind and #3 in solar. We can do it again.
Thank you. Mr. Sestak, I was just asked if you could please speak a little closer to the mic.
Repeat the question. It was
Sure.
Paris Accord, right?
Sure. What would your proposal be for decreasing greenhouse gases, and what action would you take in the Senate to ensure that the U.S. complies with the mandate?
Climate change is the #1 strategic livable issue of this world. It's so bad that the United States military last March said that one of the greatest sources of conflict that we will have to plan for in the decades to come will be because of climate change. We're spending $250 million to raise the piers in Norfolk, Virginia, because our carriers in about a decade and a half will no longer be able to tie up in Norfolk and Virginia. When I was in Congress, I was called by Clean Water Action the most pro-friendly environmental congressman in the House for Pennsylvania. Sierra Club, as well as Penn Environment, gave me an award for having 100% environmental voting record. I didn't know I had it till they gave it to me. It was a practical approach. I voted for the cap and trade bill that we had in the House and that I would fight for in the Senate. Why? Look at the very first national acid rain, the national cap and trade bill we had, acid rain, where in that common sense way of doing it, we achieved the standards of decreasing acid rain by 65% and decreasing sulfur oxide by 40%, well ahead, and at 1/4 of the cost of the mandate by 2010. That's what we have to do. Production tax credits, investment tax credits. How could we not extend them into the next decade? My gosh, we gave the Marcellus Shale, we actually gave them $10 billion in tax credit. How could we not investing in renewables to go forward? In 2010, when I ran for the U.S. Senate, I was for a moratorium on fracking, as I am today. And I represented a Republican district that I won in my second race by 20 points and only spent $28,000 on yard signs, because I explained it to them in a very practical way from the national security aspect. I co-sponsored the frack bill that Bob Casey now is still trying to bring to the fore. Look, in the Navy, we learned, expect what you can inspect. How can the EPA be forbidden from inspecting here in Pennsylvania by a law passed in the early 2000s? Is that 2 minutes? In the early 2000s, that they cannot come in and inspect our water being polluted by fracking. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman?
This country has a really great record of passing quality environmental initiatives. And ironically, it goes back to all the recent ones are Republican presidents. Richard Nixon, the Clean Air, Clean Water Bill. The Montreal Protocol, that was Ronald Reagan. And the Montreal Protocol, not to get wonky here, was that everyone agreed to cut the use of CFCs. I remember being in elementary school and thinking that if we don't, or excuse me, high school, thinking that if we don't close this giant ozone thing, our skin's gonna melt off. And it was successful, and we did it because there was bipartisanship there, because we stopped arguing about the science and we decided to get something done. And then you fast forward to, as Joe brought up, sulfur dioxide, tradable permits. That's another thing that eliminated acid rain almost overnight. And we did it in a way through bipartisanship when the first George Bush was president. I've personally been disappointed with the Paris Accord. It has no mandatory participation. It is entirely voluntary. It's not likely to make any significant difference. We need to do more in this country to make sure that we address climate change in a meaningful way. Participation, Kyoto was a disaster. We never even ratified it as a country. Country after country dropped out of it, and nothing accomplished that way either. It's 63 degrees out in January. Climate change is a serious issue, and we need serious solutions. And we need to get back to the bipartisanship that helped create quality environmental solutions instead of taking piecemeal, like voluntarily. It's not going to work. We in this nation need to get serious about it. We need to work bipartisanly to develop a quality, comprehensive approach to climate change that extends far beyond the Paris Accord. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a question you will have 30 seconds to answer. And we'll begin with Mr. Sestak. But the question is, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, is a great step toward providing health care for all Americans. So the question is, are you willing to take the next step and support the creation of a single-payer government health care system?
The major objective of single payer is to get rid of the insurance companies, and we embedded that in the Affordable Care Act. When the public option failed, we put in there co-ops. You take the one in New Hampshire. It actually has 80% of everybody who's come in there. No, insurance companies are forbidden to be in co-ops. Second, what we permitted is everybody in 2018 to go into those co-ops in the exchange, even from big business. And third, like's happening in a hospital here, the hospitals are no longer going via the insurance companies. They are actually going direct and trying to take patients. That's the practical way to get to the objective of single payer.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman.
I'm a huge fan of the Affordable Care Act, and I've had a direct and personal family impact. Without the Affordable Care Act, my wife and I, who's in the audience, wouldn't have had health care. That's the only reason why we have health care today. And shortly after we bought our first policy, my wife suffered a pretty significant break in her ankle, and that saved us from financial disaster, and it got her the care that she needed. Affordable Care Act, we Democrats have to embrace it and bear hug it. Single payer is something that could be the ideal, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be an evolution, not an overnight revolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McGinty?
Single payer, I believe, would squeeze a lot of the costs that we otherwise see in insurance company profits, et cetera, that are crippling the ability for us to achieve universal and affordable health care. Having said that, the Affordable Care Act is something that Democrats have to be proud of. Finally, we have a shot at universal health care. I was proud to work with Governor Wolf to expand Medicaid so that now 500,000 Pennsylvanians have Medicaid, $500 million a year we're saving. Here's the issue, Pat Toomey, hands off Medicaid, stop trying to repeal it, and Pat Toomey, hands off Planned Parenthood and stop trying to take our health care away.
Thank you.
Next question, we'll start with Mr. Fetterman. Each candidate has 2 minutes to answer this question. It has been 13 years since President Bush sent troops into Iraq, and yet we still have special forces and support troops in the area. In a recent interview with Medal of Honor recipient Colonel Jack Jacobs, he stated that it would take a coordinated ground invasion of over 250,000 ground soldiers to defeat ISIS. Under what circumstances, if any, would you send U.S. ground troops to fight ISIS in Syria?
Let's step back. Can we all agree? Is anyone in the room? How did the Iraq War work out for all of us? Are anyone happy? Even the brother of the president that instituted it has said it was a huge mistake. And all of that was based on all this intelligence and all this rationale. I think the important lesson that no one seems to be getting is that restraint is the new strength, and we have to look at things strategically. When I was at the Kennedy School, I had the privilege of meeting Robert McNamara. He was considered the architect of the Vietnam War, and he was on a book tour where he was explaining that the Vietnam War didn't have to happen. It was a misunderstanding. It was a war of choice that we should have not entered in. But unfortunately, our country didn't learn from that, and we went into another war of choice, Iraq. And that has cost trillions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of lives, and has veered our country off in a direction that we're only now beginning to recover from. Consequently, with the fight on ISIS, where are the experts? Do they, if there's so many experts, why is the Middle East, even after 15 years of so-called experts, still in the condition that it's in? ISIS is clearly a threat, but we need to stop this mentality that we have to go over and bomb the hell out of everybody. Thank you. So we're not bombing the hell out of everybody, because more than likely, it's not your kid that's going to get sent over there. We in this country need to understand that we have made a mess out of the Middle East following the so-called experts' advice. And we need to be very careful if we engage ISIS and send ground troops in, because our last 15 years of policy in that region has been an unmitigated disaster for us as a nation, but the world as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. As it relates to ISIS, I do believe we have to defeat and destroy ISIS. And I think we should take the following steps. I think we should support the airstrikes and our special operations forces, not with our young men and women on the ground and in harm's way, but supporting Arabs, Kurds, Sunni forces. When we have done that, we have made progress in Sinjar, Ramadi. Second, I think we need to get the coalition of 62 countries that we've put together to have much more skin in the game. Third, I think we need to be aggressive in cutting off the lifeblood of this horrible terroristic organization. We need to get rid of their oil assets and their financial assets. But picking up on what John said, look, this is the bottom line. We've got to hold the Republicans to account, setting the world on fire in the totally unjustified invasion of Iraq. Second, Pat Toomey, presumably saying that he's the one who will be strong in defending and protecting the people of this country. But then inexplainably, or it's up to him to explain, voting against closing the terror loophole. Pat Toomey, look your constituents in the eye and explain to us why it is okay for terrorists to come to this country and buy weapons with the threat then of turning around and harming Americans and others around the world. And third, Pat Toomey has been very, very eager to see our young men and women be sent into harm's way. But then he has turned around and voted against every single bill to protect, to lift up our vets and to help our veterans' families. Now, my own brother Jimmy served this country. And after 25 years of working on military aircraft, he lost a battle with severe alcoholism. Pat Toomey, when we took Jimmy to the Veterans Administration, they said, bring him back in a year and a half, we might be able to help you. Let's stand by our vets and our veterans' families.
Thank you. Mr. Sestak?
After I came out of Afghanistan and took command of the aircraft carrier battle group, we were doing the strikes in Afghanistan when I was directed to take the carrier battle group into the straits, through the Straits of Hormuz. I flew into Bahrain to see the fleet commander. He said, Joe, what do you think? I said, we're ready to go. He said, no, what do you personally think? I said, this is a tragedy. Where's the clear and present danger to America? But we're ready to go. The thing about using your military is before you take the first step, you should understand the last step. It isn't, as someone said, how policy begins, it's how it ends. And we have not done that with ISIS. But we are where we are today. But think about this, when we do break that caliphate, with 13 million Syrians, half of their population displaced, killed, moved around, the infrastructure totally destroyed, Western Iraq is not dissimilar. What takes its place? Much like Al-Qaeda in Iraq became ISIS. We have not planned for the day after, but we are where we are today. We have to stop treating ISIS just like an international terrorist organization. Oh, it is that. But it is so much more. It is a state with the size of Belgium, population like Norway's, and we must take down with our air power that state by not hitting the refined oil, but the crude oil from whence it gets $600 million a year. And the $2 billion it extorts from its population, we must strike those money exchanges and that infrastructure from the air. We must cut the legs out from underneath it, from whence it can do its damage with money in terrorism. And then we must accept that we will have to work with adversarial nations like Iran that has lost 3,000 troops in Syria, and Russia, and accept that Assad must remain there because they, along with Saudi Arabia and the Sunni nations that must lead the ground conflict, not us, must be brought together to go against them. And last, but most important, plan to secure the peace so we don't have to go back in.
Thank you.
For the next question, and Mr. Fetterman, I think that they're having some difficulty when you were picking up your mic.
I can't. It's like
just stoop a little bit. No. And Ms. McGinty also, you might want to adjust your mic because they're having difficulty hearing you in the back as well.
Thank you.
So the next question will begin with Ms. McGinty, and this is a 30-second question. Sexual assault in the military is an unmitigated horror. What is your position on the Military Justice Improvement Act sponsored by Senator Kristen Gilliland of New York?
No, when young women and men step up to serve our country, the idea that they would be subjected to any kind of ill treatment, let alone sexual harassment, rape, and worse, is truly an outrage. I salute Senator Gillibrand for her very brave, courageous, and tenacious leadership on this issue. Had I been a United States Senator when she first proposed and then second proposed again her legislation, I absolutely would have voted with her, and it's a disgrace that Pat Toomey voted against that legislation twice.
Thank you. Mr. Sestak.
Yes, I sided with Senator Claire McCaskill. Look, when a F-14 pilot came home who was a woman, she was groped in the middle of the night on my carrier battle group. We lined up 5,000 sailors the next morning to find out who did it. Fire the generals and the admirals that are permitting this to happen. We are a military of accountability. Don't outsource that accountability like the Senate does when no one's been held accountable for voting for that war in Iraq. Democrat and Republican, and no one's been held accountable. Fire the generals and the admirals. Don't outsource it, because here's why. There's a lower standard of taking someone to court-martial if you outsource it than letting the commanding officer do it. And that's what needs to be done.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman?
I would support the bill if I were Senate. I would have voted, and I guess it is unfortunate, of course, that Pat Toomey voted against it. But I also have to acknowledge that Senator McCaskill does have valid points too. The bill basically removes the chain of command from the proceedings when a rape occurs, for anyone that isn't exactly familiar with it. And Senator McCaskill is that the pressure doesn't really come from the chain of command as much as it comes from the peers. And her claim is that the bill doesn't address the peer pressure, which she believes is driving it. I would support the bill, but it is an imperfect one given McCaskill's concerns.
Thank you.
The next question, you have 1 minute to answer. In preparing for this forum, our committee members drafted questions after examining a list of topics. Every member came back with a version of this question. How in the world are you going to work with the Republican members of the Senate? Specifically, on what important issues and with which Republican senators do you believe you can reach across the aisle to enact meaningful legislation? We'll start with Mr. Sestak.
I'll do it the same way as a congressman. I represent a Republican district. 56% Republican, 33% Democrat. I was the second Democratic congressman since the Civil War. I kept the office open and had open town halls every week. We won my second election by 20 points. I only spent, after raising $3.5 million, $28,000. Down in Congress, those were 19 bipartisan bills because I worked with the other side. We moved the first movement into autism, as I mentioned, but we also had a forgiveness of loans for occupational and physical therapists, for TBI as our troops came home, and for autistic children. And then we had the first Elder Abuse Act passed in 17 years. I ran in a Republican district. And last, I'll always keep in mind someone who you would appreciate this, John McCain, fellow Academy graduate, who would call me and say, Joe, sorry, MSNBC, you're still too long. Keep it shorter.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman?
As to which Republican senators that I would work with if I were in the United States Senate, all of them. On which issue would I be willing to compromise? Any of them, assuming that they are willing to compromise. If a Republican like Pat Toomey says that the minimum wage is great at $7.35, it's really hard to find common ground with that when I believe that everyone deserves a $15 an hour minimum living wage. If Senator Toomey believes that we should defund Planned Parenthood, and I believe that Planned Parenthood is one of the finest organizations doing some of the most important work in America today, I wouldn't be able to compromise with that. If Senator Pat Toomey said that we need to tear in our backs on the NRA and enact common sense gun control legislation, I would do that in a second. The sad reality is that bipartisanship is dying, and I have to say that it's not our fault. Earlier when I mentioned this disparity with environmental policies, bipartisanship is dying, and it's not our fault.
Thank you. Ms. McGinty?
Well, the story goes that the last budget impasse was broken when the women of the Senate got together, a little pizza, a little beer, and they got it done. And I would eagerly join that group. But look, in my career, I have gotten stuff done with tough Republican legislatures. You know, I was not going to convince our Republican legislature to sing the gospel of global warming with me. But when I changed the language and made it about jobs, we became the first coal state to pass legislation requiring the use of renewable energy. And then we doubled down on it and passed legislation requiring a reduction in the consumption of energy. You know, sometimes you also just have to be tenacious. And so when Newt Gingrich took over the Congress, I was not going to be told no that we were going to fail to strengthen safe drinking water protections. It was shortly after hundreds of people were made sick in Milwaukee, and I will tell you, I brought those families to D.C. to stare Newt Gingrich down. He tried to defund my office 3 times, but in a year, we had the toughest new safe drinking water protections in the country's history.
Thank you.
This is a 1-minute question. We'll begin with Mr. Fetterman. During the race for this Senate seat 6 years ago, ideas such as Uber and Lyft and issues such as domestic drones and ISIS were not a part of our dialogue. So what major challenges will the Senate need to address, as you see it, in the next 6 years that are currently not on the public's radar? And we'll begin with Mr. Fetterman.
I think the major issue that this Congress needs to address 6 years from now is the issue that it needed to address 20 years ago, and that's the fundamental inequality that is destroying our country. Thank you. People say that there is a crisis in public education, and I disagree with that. If you live in Mount Lebanon, you go to the best school district in the state. You know, they think it's great. There is a crisis in public education if your zip code is 15104, because it's one of the most troubled school districts in the state. We in this country have to address inequality in all of its forms, whether it's our drug policy, whether it's how we treat immigrants, whether it's how we have sentencing guidelines and mass incarceration. You know, these issues haven't gone away. They're not going to go away until we can collectively agree that we in this society cannot be dictated by the zip code that you're born into, that should not dictate the quality of your life and your destiny. Thank you.
Ms. McGinty, sorry.
Thank you. Look, it really is about a middle class that is shrinking and on the verge of non-existent. You know, the latest statistics show that what used to be the biggest slice of our country, the middle class, is now the smallest slice. This is a matter of urgent concern, and I don't think we should allow anyone to distract us from this agenda, distract us with things like another unfair trade agreement that's going to do nothing other than eviscerate our environmental and public health protections and take away good jobs out of this country. We should not be distracted by Republicans who want to suggest that someone trying to earn a decent wage is somehow looking for a handout. You know, we absolutely, and families urgently need equal pay for equal work. So many women now are heads of their households. We've got to empower them to be able to meet the needs of themselves and their children. And I'll tell you this, do not take the eye off the ball of health care. They are still adamant to try to take it away from us. We'll fight for it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Sestak.
Yes, I came to Heinz College and worked for the dean because I wanted to learn the answer to this question. I taught 2 courses. The first was ethical leadership. It got to the question that was just asked. How can you get the people to trust us in both parties? I want to work with Republicans. I love those town halls on the Affordable Care Act. And the Tea Party in my district actually, at the end of it, asked for a photograph with me. They didn't vote for me, but I earned their trust. That's the largest deficit in America. The second course I taught here was an analytical course to restore the American dream. John's right. Income inequality is the largest scourge in our nation today. But to restore it, it will take more than just distribution. It'll take economic mobility. So everyone has a chance to do better than their parents. Here in Pennsylvania, over the last 40 years, small businesses, which create 70% of all jobs, have actually increased at half the national average. That's why the kids don't stay here, is because our job creation in the last 40 years has increased half. Practical approaches of how to resort to those will give us the economic mobility we need to restore the American dream.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sestak.
The next question, you have 2 minutes to answer. The Black Lives Matter movement has pushed criminal justice reform onto the front pages. In a recent New Yorker article on mass incarceration, Carnegie Mellon professor Al Blumstein explained that one of the difficulties with reforming the criminal justice system is that no one person or group is in charge of reform. How would you lead on the problems highlighted by the Black Lives Matter movement? And what do you believe are the essential components for authentic criminal justice reform? I'm sorry, and we start with Ms. McGinty.
Thank you. This morning I had the privilege of attending the John Wesley Community Center church services. Pastor Grayson shared with us that on Friday he attended the funeral of 3 young men, all under 30. And the Wednesday before that, there was another funeral. I think we need to start this conversation by grabbing people's hearts. Black Lives Matter, period. I don't know why anyone would feel, that's right. I don't know why anyone would feel brought down by recognizing and holding up one of our fellow citizens and feeling the heartbreak of those parents who are losing their sons and their daughters. And I think we have to charge after this hard. This is where we have to go after illegal guns, and we have to do things like close those loopholes that allow criminals to get hold of guns. And I think we need to, speak about my dad. My dad walked the beat for 35 years. I mean that literally. He knew the neighbors. He knew the leaders in the community. I think we need to get back to that community policing, where the police force knows and is part of that community. And that just can't be an aspiration. We need training of our police officers so we de-escalate in these situations. And we need body cameras so that everyone can get the straight scoop and see what actually unfolded. And I think we also need to make the case, if we're going to have genuine community policing, people from the community need to have a shot at being part of the police ranks and being part of that bringing everyone together. As it relates to criminal justice reform, get rid of the mandatory minimums, decriminalize marijuana, and let's move on that immediately.
Thank you. Mr. Sestak?
Yes, Black Lives Matter. Stories and also statistics show it. 18% of kids who are in preschool are African American. Over 50% of the kids that are suspended in preschool are African American. That continues all the way through, even for disabled blacks, where 1/5 of all those who are disabled in IDEA are African American, and again, about 40% are the ones that are placed in restraints of everyone. I didn't only teach at Carnegie Mellon. I taught at Cheney University, the oldest historical black university in America. Part of the reason was I wasn't allowed to go in the last race to visit any Democratic events in Philadelphia, and someone put out a press release in Pittsburgh that said Sestak's not allowed within 10 miles of Pittsburgh. Paid a lot of attention to that. I went to African American churches, over 250 of them, and to pay them back, I went back to 100 to say thank you, and then taught at Cheney University. As a congressman, every year I go in to visit the prisons. I still do it today. 2 of the 3 first people I hired were African American, 1 incarcerated for a lot of years. We need to do this because we need them. Half the children under 3 years old today are children of color. In 16 years, they will be our largest national asset in terms of numbers. If they aren't in quality, we, America, don't make it. Education. Discrimination, yes. 42% of the kids in Philadelphia, 18 and under, live in poverty. We need them. It's a fact. It's just not for them. It is for us. We have to recognize that we need leaders who can actually stand there and say, when I found the N-word out there on my ship at the UAE, I assembled that entire crew on the deck, on the pier, and said, I will find you. There is not a person on this ship who's not an equal member who I would not die for. That's the leadership we need in America today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman?
As the mayor of an overwhelmingly 80% African American community, I've been democratically elected their mayor now 3 separate times. The last election in 2013 by an 8-to-1 margin. No one up here on the stage has championed the idea that Black Lives Matter more than I do, long before the hashtag was sent out over Twitter. And thank you. The first thing that we need to do is be honest, and that as far as the way America treats African Americans, Black lives don't matter in this country. And until we do, things are going to deteriorate. Look at the Flint water crisis. Can we honestly say in this nation that the Flint water crisis is not a shiningly disgusting example of environmental racism that affirms that Black lives do not matter in this country? Furthermore, and this is the sad truth, the Flint water crisis is just one of a litany of horrible things that has happened to a community of color like Flint over the last 30, 40 years. I know that because I'm the mayor of one of those communities. And I'm here to tell you, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's access to jobs, whether it's the grossly unequal treatment, whether in terms of marijuana convictions, there is not one area in this country that we cannot improve to honor this idea that Black lives do in fact matter, and we must get to that point because we we in this country have failed badly, and it's only getting worse. This inequality epidemic that is tearing us apart, ground zero is at Black Lives Matter as far as I'm concerned. Furthermore, as mayor of the police department in my community, we have gone 5.5 years without the loss of life in our community through violence. And we did that, thank you, and we did that by perfecting a community policing model that I believe has relevant implications across the country. Look what's happened in Ferguson, Baltimore, Chicago, these horrible things. Yet we in my community went 5.5 years, but we didn't do it without any civilian complaints. That's why Black Lives Matter. That's one of the reasons why I'm running for the United States Senate.
This is a lightning rod question, so these are questions that just require a yes or no response. And we'll begin with Mr. Sestak. But the question is, have you sought or received the endorsement, or have you accepted any campaign contributions from the following organizations? The National Rifle Association, Pennsylvania's Life PAC, and the oil and gas industry. So we'll begin with Mr. Sestak.
I'm sorry, what? That one too is no. But I've not asked anybody for an endorsement. Look, I don't have the big names, but I have my name.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fetterman.
No, I have not sought the endorsement of any elected officials. I've sought the endorsement of voters across Pennsylvania. And I have sought the endorsement of the grassroots. And I have not received money from any of those organizations. We're strictly a grassroots-funded campaign and always will be.
Thank you.
Well, I'm honored to have the endorsement of the Democratic leadership of Allegheny County, many of whom are joining us here today because they fight every day defending the values that I hold dear, and I want to thank them very much. I also have fought my whole life coming from a blue-collar family for working women and men. And I am also honored to have the endorsement of many in the building trades, starting with the steel workers. And because the environment has been central to who and what I am honored and thrilled to have the endorsement of the League of Conservation Voters and Environmental Defense in this critical election.
How about these three?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Oil and gas, really?
Next question, you have 2 minutes to answer the question. 4 days following the Paris attacks, Senator Toomey said that the risk of a terrorist coming into the United States posing as a refugee is too great, and he called on Congress to pass a law to suspend any resettlement here. He said the vetting process is unreliable. This is an argument that may resonate with some Pennsylvania voters. How will you counter Senator Toomey's argument? We're going to start with Mr. Fetterman.
Please forgive me. I actually I wept when I read this morning, so I'm going to do my best. Today in the New York Times, there was an article about 13 children drowning that were fleeing from Syria. One photo showed a small boy, perhaps 3 years old, dressed for a mild winter, dark blue pants, coats, a sky blue sweater for extra protection. The grown-up who had dressed him for the journey barely 5 miles across the sea had cared enough to put matching socks on his little blue feet. The boy was lying face up on the rocks, a winter hat, sky blue, with a white pom-pom covering his face. Why in this country do we value the life of this little boy less than they value the life of my little boy? We in this country need to accept Syrians that are fleeing this terrible situation and not pander to the horrible, horrible basic prejudices. Because you know what, 70 years ago, that would have been a little Jewish boy, you know? Because we have to understand that we are a beacon, we are a sanctuary, and the second we turn our backs from that, we become un-American. Of course, the immigrants need to be vetted, but you know, how many more 3-year-old little boys have to drown before we in this country have the moral courage to stand up and say, we're going to do the right thing. I don't care what it costs me in terms of votes. And we're going to do this because we are America and we don't turn our back on the most vulnerable. And if we continue to do so, then we need to get rid of the Statue of Liberty. Because the Statue of Liberty doesn't say, send us your best, your brightest, your PhDs and your engineers. It says, send us this little 3-year-old boy. Thank you.
McGinty?
Last night I had the privilege of meeting a young man from Sudan. He had escaped after, as a little boy, being forced to use a machine gun against his own family. That little boy made his way to this country in ways that I hope and pray none of us ever have to see or experience firsthand. But the passion and the fervor that brought him here and the pride that he now has as a citizen of this country is what will sustain and keep this country strong into the future. We turn young men like him away at our great cost and our great peril. You know, I'm second generation in this country. My grandparents had to leave Ireland because there was nothing to eat. There was no opportunity to be able to provide for themselves or their families. They came here, they worked hard, and then they sacrificed their children as well in World War II. This is the great secret of America, our strength in our democracy. When it comes to the Syrian refugees, that's the same promise that they hold for us and we need to extend to them. Do we need to protect and preserve the homeland? Absolutely. But you know, these Republicans have done nothing but to flame up ugliness and divisiveness. The review process is an 18 to 24-month review process. In that process, we can determine whether we are looking at people who are fleeing oppression and terror. And when we do, we should welcome them and be grateful for the honor of receiving them. And if there is a person who would harm and threaten Americans, well, clearly we can make those smart decisions. But here's what we need to say to Pat Toomey. Stop with the rhetoric. Stop scaring people and dividing us, and vote. He voted against closing the terror loophole, and he voted against closing the visa waiver program.
Thank you.
Lead, Senator. Thank you.
Mr. Sestak?
Yes. I walked on the ground in the war in Afghanistan, a Muslim country. I've been to over 80 countries, so many of them Muslim. I remember getting on a ship as captain, and we had our first Muslim sailor. And he said, "May I play 5 times a day?" We didn't have room on a small boy, but the head pilot said, "I'll step out of my office 5 times a day." He's one of us. I was the only elected official in Pennsylvania who, when asked if a mosque should be built on the site of 9/11, said, "How could it not be? It's freedom of religion." Gitmo is such a scourge. How can we put anyone outside the rule of law when we are a nation not of men, but of law? And then our character, that we are in a fight for the soul of America. How can anyone say that we do not welcome others from other countries? She's right. It's not only 18 to 24 months, whether over there, but there's a classified program that even I was in the Navy's anti-terrorism, now don't know to screen them properly. All that said, my own religion, Catholicism, as St. Francis went over to a Muslim nation, brought back our rosary beads from the Islamic faith. It brought back the Angelus, where we're supposed to, okay, I don't, pray 5 times a day. The ornament of the world, Islam, is a beautiful religion. How can anyone in this nation, when we have Muslims fighting alongside me overseas, much like we had gays fighting with me overseas and women, not to say they all deserve equal rights here at home or equal entree to be all they can be in this nation? That's what America is. And we are in a fight for that soul of America, of whom we are and who we want to welcome here to this country, which is everyone, just like my father. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a 1-minute question, and we'll begin with Ms. McGinty. In 1952, when Adlai Stevenson was running for president, He enjoyed great popularity on college campuses around the country. And at one campaign stop in particular, a student, after hearing him speak, jumped to his feet and said, "Governor Stevenson, you will get the vote of every thinking American." To which Stevenson famously replied, "That's fine, but I need a majority." So, like Stevenson, I think that all three of you are high-minded people with high purposes. And with the balance of control in the Senate at issue here, what is it that distinguishes each one of you from your two opponents in this race? And I guess we're really looking for you to speak to electability. So we'll begin with Ms. McGinty.
Well, listen, I want to commend and acknowledge the leadership and the distinguished service of both of my colleagues on this stage. I certainly know, hands down, either would serve the people of Pennsylvania much more faithfully and better than Pat Toomey has, and it's a privilege for me to be on this stage here. I can only say that as a daughter of a policeman, a mother who scrubbed our house every day and went to work at night, giving it all she had, I'll do the same for the people of Pennsylvania. I think the situation is urgent. I think we need to stand up for hardworking families. I think we need to stand up for women who absolutely urgently need equal pay for equal work. I think we need to stand up for families that are seeing this crisis of heroin and addiction, while we have Republicans who want to take away the health care that finally recognize that mental and behavioral health issues need to be treated equally with physical health issues. I have a track record of getting it done, and I have just a little bit of energy that I promise I'll throw into the job. Thank you very much.
Mr. Sestak?
Yes, I think it's an extraordinarily, increasingly dangerous world. And I think on both sides of the aisles now in the U.S. Senate, we have such a dearth of those that understand that when you use our military, you should have it on the back of the table, not the front of the table, because so few know how it will end. Second, I think we all want to restore the American dream. But what I am most concerned about today is I don't laugh at Donald Trump. He worries me. But he mined the same vein of distrust that I did in my 422-mile walk across the state. My endorsements was a Republican coming out from a car dealership and saying, "Admiral, I'm a Republican, but I love what you're doing." I won in a Republican district, second Democrat since the Civil War, and then I won again, as I mentioned, by only $28,000. I was asked to run for the Senate because I had $3.5 million. They didn't care what I thought. I had to run against the establishment and beat Senator Specter, and I came within 2 points of Toomey when a gubernatorial candidate lost by 9.5, and 5 Democratic incumbents were swept overboard by 11 points average. I was outspent 3-1, the largest funding gap of any governor or Senate race in America, but Jerry Brown. I would love your help to close that final gap.
Thank you, Mr. Sestak. Mr. Fetterman.
Well, what sets me apart from the other two, well, I suspect it's probably harder for me to find clothes to wear. But let's address the elephant in the room. I was in Philadelphia 2 days ago, and it was an evening event, and I was walking to it. And I had perfect parity. I had 2 random strangers stop me on the street and say, "You're awesome, I'm voting for you, dude." And then I also had 2 random strangers cross the street to avoid walking down the same sidewalk as me. And so it's electability. Some people look at me. I have tattoos. I have a shaved head. People ask that question. But and my answer to that is, well, the head of the Pennsylvania State Party believes that I'd be the strongest candidate in the field to go up against Pat Toomey. Thank you. And I also believe that I've never shied away from a tough election. My first election in Braddock, I won by 1 single solitary vote. So this race, I'm in it to win it, and I thank you for your support.
Thank you.
This is a 1-minute question, and we'll start with Mr. Sestak. A majority of violent gun crimes do not occur with a rifle or assault-style weapons, but instead with handguns. What is your proposal for reducing the number of violent gun crimes in Pennsylvania and in the United States? Again, this is a 1-minute question.
Yes, well, I got an F from the NRA. $2 million was put in against me when I ran against Senator Toomey. Look, I told all my sailors when they came aboard, if you have a gun, I'll tow a sled in the Persian Gulf and let you practice what you do here at home. But how can you ever think that our police officers should go up against assault weapons when we had this crime, this criminal crime in 2009 here in Bridgeville, the aerobics club, the LA fitness shop? I wrote an op-ed for assault weapons ban and sent it to every newspaper, Republican, Democrat, conservative, or liberal, supported the assault weapons ban. And those were pistols that were used there, semi-assault ones. I believe in background checks, the same bill that they almost got through the Senate that I co-sponsored. But I believe more than anything in child locks and making sure that the records are not destroyed at the ATF. There are so many common sense things. There is no reason why those in the military who go up against these assault weapon bans, when they come here, those weapons have to be used in our society. We need people who will stand up, even in a Republican district, and say this is common sense. Thank you.
Mr. Fetterman?
The numbers on my right arm are the dates when people have been murdered in my community since I've been mayor. 7 of those 9 dates are handgun deaths. When my phone rings at 2:30 in the morning, it's not someone calling to say you're doing a great job, Mayor. It's somebody calling to say that somebody's lost their lives and you have to go see a terrible and horrible violent scene. Each one of these has racked me with guilt and anxiety because at the end of the day, I am responsible for those. But we have been able to drastically reduce gun crime and violence in my community. As I mentioned earlier, we went 5.5 years without a gun death, or any death for that matter, in my community. As your United States Senator, I don't think anybody has a greater understanding of what exactly handguns and their subsequent violence costs this country more than I do. I was at a campaign event also in Philadelphia, and I asked the room, how many people here at this event hear gunshots at night? And only one person raised their hand, and it was the African-American man that worked the elevator. We in this country also need to understand that the handgun issue is also central to inequality in this country as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, I shared what Pastor Grayson had to say this morning. 1 week, 4 funerals. We've got an epidemic of the loss of beautiful lives. 300,000 lives lost over 10 years. To bring urgency to that, there are common sense things that we can and should do. Close the loopholes. Use technology so that only the owner of that gun can shoot it. But I think we have to recognize something else too, and that is for the great gains we have seen from those brave souls who have led the civil rights movement, we're on the brink of losing those gains because of a deep and vast concentration of poverty in our communities. We need to start lifting people up. And it's got to be about things like affordable housing. And it's got to be about things like stop beating up on our teachers and bring neighborhood schools back. And it's got to be about things like a genuinely inclusive economy where everybody gets a shot. That's not happening now, and we got to take that on.
Thank you, Ms. McGinty.
So this is a 1-minute question. There's a lot of fearful talk about immigrants in the current political season. And Pennsylvania and, of course, Pittsburgh have a rich tradition of immigration and immigrant success stories. The namesake of this university, Andrew Carnegie, came from Dunfermline, Scotland. Even Ben Roethlisberger came from another country outside of Cleveland. I would ask if you might share, this is a 1-minute question, your favorite immigrant success story, and we'll begin with Mr. Fetterman.
My favorite immigrant success story is sitting over there in the third row. Giselle, would you stand up? My lovely wife, Giselle, she was brought here to this country when she was 9 years old by her mother, seeking a better life and a safety for her children. And somebody asked me when I was on the Chris Hayes show, actually Chris Hayes did, he's like, you know, your family, you know, broke the law, you know, what do you think of that? And I said back, I'm so glad they did, because if they didn't, I wouldn't have the beautiful family that I have. And my wife, through her efforts, through the free store and other things, has eliminated food and clothing insecurity in my community and has improved the lives of countless hundreds of other people as well, too. Immigration is what made our country great, and what keeps our country great. And the biggest thing of all is we all came from a boat somewhere. You know, we got to get over that and embrace immigration and have a humane, sensible pathway to citizenship for people that are here and remain true to the ideals in the Statue of Liberty. Thank you very much.
Ms. McGinty.
Well, I think of the stories of my grandparents, all four of whom were immigrants to this country from Ireland. And their tenacity, not just the courage in terms of making that journey across the ocean, knowing that in all likelihood they'd never have a chance to go back, never have a chance to see their family. My grandmother, only 16 years old when she boarded that boat all by herself. It's incredible courage and bravery, and something that I cherish. And they came here, unfortunately, to face the signs in the stores, Irish need not apply. You know, but they were not to be defeated. And whether it was the backbreaking work in the coal mines or the dirty work in the factories, they did it. And they did it proudly. But I'm also really proud that they became part of those voices then that got louder and louder and stood up and said no more. When people are working hard, they need safe and decent working conditions, and they need to be paid a decent wage. And those jobs, those manufacturing jobs, are good jobs. It's on us to do the same now for this generation and expand it in the service industry and other industries so that all jobs are good jobs and good paying jobs.
Thank you. Mr. Sestak.
Obviously, my favorite is my pop. He immigrated here from Czechoslovakia. He used to sit there at the dining room table, perhaps I mentioned it. Penny for college, penny for food. 8 kids. My mom, a high school math teacher, went out with us to school and was there when we came home. I've never met a better man. He went to World War II. He served this country. He's up there now. My second favorite story is of a young woman. Of those 18,000 constituents, 4 times the average congressional office. She was being pushed out of our country. We salvaged her. She went to University of Chicago and now is becoming a doctor in the U.S. Army. And third, getting a guy who helped us in Iraq and couldn't get home back here as he was about to be persecuted. We fought hard and quickly, calling out there as well as State Department, and got him out of Iraq before they got him. And he's here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was our final question. We want to thank you very sincerely for answering all of our questions. We will now have 2 minutes each for closing statements, and we will begin with Ms. McGinty.
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming together today and having us here. But mostly I want to thank you for your tirelessness. You created history in electing a good man governor of this Commonwealth in 2014. And you created history again in November of 2015 in winning a clean sweep, all 5 of those seats. We need that passion again in this election in 2016. We are at such a crossroads in this country. On the one hand, technology and the opportunities that are there that can lift us up and drive us to a brilliant future are within our grasp if we genuinely respect and invest in every single precious individual in this country. On the other hand, we have those who would demagogue and divide and drag us down. You stand for and you hold the values that made this country great. Donald Trump, this country is great. We don't need your idea of making it great again. And I just hope that I will have the privilege of being in that fight with you. And I ask today for your help and support so that we can go after this election, this race, and win one for the hardworking people of this Commonwealth and country. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sestak?
Thank you, everybody. I didn't get married when I was 47. I used to tell people with so much time at sea and in foreign countries, I actually just couldn't convince anyone. But I had my child, my only child. And I came back from that war. And as I said at the beginning, she was struck with that malignant brain cancer, that little warrior who fought through it. When they wheeled him out from that first operation, I asked the pathologist who was in there, what is it? He said, glioblastoma. I didn't know what the hell that was. He said, she's got 3 months, at best maybe 9. I walked outside Walter Reed Army Hospital. I did what any pop here would do. I looked up to the sky and said, Lord, just take me, will you? It doesn't work that way. I'd never cried before in my life. I went back in, and she's here today. As an independent, I could have cared less about politics. The Affordable Care Act that John mentioned was my payback tour. I love this country for saving my daughter. Yeah, I served it, but they did a lot more for me. I did that walk across Pennsylvania, holding up those combat boots I wore in the ground in Afghanistan. I slept overnight in an African-American church, and the next day did an event on the underserved. I continued that walk all the way across Pennsylvania, right through Allegheny County to the Ohio border, because I honestly believe, more than anything else, leaders, the establishment, has lost the trust of the people on both sides. Recidivism, George Bush was our best president on recidivism. The only president who ever mentioned it in a State of the Union speech and put $300 million in to help people. Can you work with others on the other side? You betcha, and we don't have a choice. I've been on Sean Hannity 12 times. I love it, as he comes on and says, who's going to win this time, Admiral? There's no winning, though. We're all in this together. That, more than anything, of gaining the trust of the people of Pennsylvania, like I did in my district, is how I believe we can best govern to restore the American dream. Thank you.
Mr. Fetterman?
I stand here before you as a profoundly lucky man. And the overwhelming majority of it, all the good things in my life, were largely due to the random lottery of my birth. I was born into a stable, loving, 2-parent household that took great care of me. They read to me at night. I never had to worry about whether my gas was going to be on, whether we'd have heat, whether we'd have electricity, food in the refrigerator. And I spent most of my adult life up until the age of 23 taking that for granted, thinking it's like somehow I had a major role in that when I absolutely didn't. The random lottery of birth determines that I had a great life, but it also dooms millions of people in this country to a life that they don't deserve to lead. And once I kind of came to, I've spent the last 20 years working to fight inequality in all its forms. First as a GED instructor in the Hill District, then as a program director in Braddock, and I've literally helped hundreds and hundreds, mostly African Americans, earn their high school diplomas. When I was confronted with the specter of gun violence, I ran for mayor, and we've been able to tackle gun violence in my community as well, too. I've bumped up against the limits of the office of what a small-town mayor can accomplish, and that's why I'm standing here in front of you, to acknowledge the debt that I owe society for my easy ride, and I want to spend the rest of my life continuing to pay off that debt, and that's why I'm running for the United States Senate. We have an epidemic of inequality in this country. It's only getting worse. We have to lean in, and we have to do it quickly. I'm running for your support, but mostly I'm running because I just was born into the right family and I got lucky. I have the opportunity to do so. Please help me continue this fight beyond the borders of Braddock and elect me to as your next United States Senator. Thank you very much.
Many thanks to all three of you for doing this, for stepping up. And how about another round of applause for all three candidates.